Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening to the show. This is John Clark, back with another episode of the Private Practice Workshop podcast. And today is another clinical episode. This is kind of a new season of life and of the show. And so I'm excited to introduce another clinical topic and a new guest today. Before I do that, I just want to say a quick shout out to our sponsor for today's show. That's Jane and all-in-one practice management software. The team at Jane recognizes how much of a compassionate ally you are to your clients, and they work hard to be the same for you. From day one, you can expect unlimited customer support through onboarding that sets you up for success and a 99.99% software reliability that ensures Jane is always ready to start the day with you. If you're ready to start your Jane journey, you can head to jane.app/start and use the code PPW1MO for sign up for 1 free month off of your account. That will be in the description if you're interested in switching over to Jane. I just did that with my group practice recently, and it's been a really great transition and a great upgrade for us. So more on that soon. That being said, time to introduce our guest for today. That's Tammy Sollenberger. She is a therapist. She's an IFS therapist. She's a certified IFS consultant. She is the host of the One Inside podcast, and she also has a book. That's my off the cuff intro. Um, I had the name of your book, but then I forgot it.
It's called The One Inside.
See, and that's why we have bios written after today, but we're
Well, I
loose like
didn't
that.
help. I also was sort of like off the cuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah, the book is called The One Inside 30 Days to Your Authentic Self.
I have to ask what that was like for you. We're going to get into IFS and I want to hear more about your journey with it. We're going to talk about curiosity in IFS today. Um, but what was that process like of, deciding to write a book, writing a book, going through the process? How's it been once you got it out there in the world?
Yeah. Well, it was actually a pretty long process because I had this idea. Like, I love those daily readers. Like in AA groups, they have daily readers, or there's all these sort of like whatever today is. So today is November 28th, and you can, whatever thing you're into, whatever spiritual thing you're into, you can get these daily readers. And I loved the idea of doing something like that for IFS. So I started thinking that I would do 365 of them. Like, I would do these sort of like one paragraph, 365 day, really just sort of a little like a little like sounding gong bell
Yeah.
mindfulness practice, just to have you sort of turn inside. So I started kind of thinking of doing it that way. Um, and then I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And then I was actually out on a paddleboard. I was in Florida on a paddleboard, and I thought, what if I did it just for 30 days, but I actually taught the IFS model. So it's the same kind of idea, a 30-day journey, but for someone that doesn't know anything about IFS. And it really was here's the first little tenet and do a little piece of work. Here's a second, do a little piece of work, and just sort of like I imagine like I'm holding your hand and we're just walking along this journey, and I'm just introducing you to your inner world. And I mean, I'm not, but sort of the book is. And I was just like, it was just this, I was like, yes, that's it, 100%. And so I just started writing, and just the problem was I had a ton of stuff already written. And so that was almost part of the problem, because then I just tried to kind of like put it all together instead of coming up with something blank. Um, so it was a lot of editing, because I was sort of like, what fits, what doesn't fit. And so sometimes but anyway, and then I got during COVID, during 2020, I got a writing coach who knew IFS. And so she
Oh,
basically was my
wow.
therapist. She was almost like a writing therapist. And she would also say, okay, do this, and we'll meet again in 2 weeks. Like, write this, do that, and we'll do it in 2 weeks. Edit this, change this. And she was unbelievable. Absolutely, absolutely loved her. And then we started sending out proposals, and I met with a consultant, and then I met with a woman who decided to open up her own publishing company and publish my book, her book, and another person's book. So it really worked out great, because then if you self-published books aren't in Barnes and Noble. And I had a part of me that was like, I would be successful if I could go into my local Barnes and Noble and
Yeah.
go see my book on the shelf, and
Yeah.
that would be success.
And then
And
someone from
so,
high school sees you in there holding your own book or like signing a page secretly, and they're like, Tammy from high
what
school?
that would be amazing
That'd be like my version.
if I lived where I went to high school. That would be
Yeah, yeah.
amazing. So
Would be even
maybe that's
crazier
my
if
goal
you're
for next.
living somewhere else and they're like,
Yeah, if like
yeah,
I'm in New Hampshire and I went to
yeah.
high school in Maryland and someone from Maryland was in New Hampshire. But maybe that's my 2024 goal, is I want it in like the local Maryland Barnes and Noble, and I'm there
Yeah.
signing it, and somebody like one of the popular girls from high school walks
Yeah.
by.
Yeah, yeah.
New
I love
goal.
that. Yeah, yeah, new goal. It's totally pure and yeah.
It's very self-led. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very
exactly.
spiritual goal.
Yeah, I'm resonating with that deeply. Of a similar fantasy. Um, because I was not that very cool in high school. Well, I have just so many questions for you. I appreciate you sharing the process with the book. It's incredible. And for some transparency, I've been learning IFS through you. And you've also been teaching IFS to the clinicians at my group practice. So I've been really just working with you as much as I can, and it's been incredible. Um, a lot of learning, of course, is experiential. So as much as when I come to meet with you and I just kind of want you to tell me what to do, you pull a fast one and make me do parts work on myself, and I'm like, God damn it. Uh, but also okay.
I'm tricky like that. I'm tricky like that.
Yeah.
I pull those fast ones. Yeah.
So I just imagine the way your book is, like you said, walking people kind of through the model by learning their own parts. It sounds like that's such a very IFS thing. I'm learning the more I get to know you folks, that like people like you've been doing it for 10 years. I saw on your website 2013, you had your first training with Dick Schwartz. Like that's crazy to me, given that IFS seems like it's going through this crazy like arrival of sorts, and the demand for it is just absolutely through the roof. I mean, there's 400 or 500 people applying every time there's a lottery for the IFS Institute, and they're picking 10 people at a time. It must be a wild, process for you to see it unfold and see both consumers learning about it and therapists learning about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I started, it was really weird. It was really weird because so probably 10, 12, let's say 12 years ago, I went to just a workshop on like children in therapy or something like that. And someone mentioned, and the woman was from Boston, and she mentioned this new therapy that all the people in Boston were kind of raving
Mm-hmm.
about. And I had parts, kind of like the little high school part, that like, what, oh, there's something new and exciting. Like all the cool people in Boston are doing this new and exciting thing. So I was like, well, I want to do new and exciting, fun, cool things. And so I went back to my office and I Googled IFS. And at that point, it had been around for like 30 years. So it wasn't new, but it was new. And I think it had just become evidence-based or wasn't evidence-based yet. Um, and I had read about it and I just sort of looked up about it, and then like right after that I went to this event, and this woman that was hosting the event, it wasn't a therapy event, it was a different event, it was a social event, and the woman that was hosting was an IFS therapist, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And then a third thing happened where I found out Dick was going to this Cape Cod Institute, where basically people go on vacations with their families, and they do
Mm.
these, and they bring in all the top names, everything, like all the top name of anybody that's doing anything teaches at this institute. And you sort of do a workshop in the morning, and then you have the rest of the day to like go on vacation in the summer. So I did that with my family 10 years ago, and it was life changing. But the thing about the curiosity, I know you and I were going to talk about this, but that's the thing that the woman at the workshop said that
Mm.
really got me. So not only was it the like you'll be popular and cool because all the cool kids are doing it. So yes, all the cool kids are doing it. But she talked about curiosity, and she said, like, what think about if you brought more curiosity to your clients. Think about if you brought more curiosity to like why they're doing what they're doing
Yeah.
and why you're doing what you're doing. And I was like, I was taught cognitive behavioral therapy. I was trained in
Yeah.
DBT. We challenge thoughts. We change thoughts. We,
Hmm.
try to work on changing behavior. We criticize behavior. We did behavior plans.
Yeah.
That's what I was used to. And I just thought, like, wait a second. Like, think about myself. This is what we do in IFS. Like, think about myself, right? There are things that I do that I don't like to do. And there are things that I don't want to do that I do. And what if instead of being so frustrated, right? Why can't I get up earlier and do a morning routine? Why can't I do the spiritual discipline that I want to do? Why can't I engage more? Why can't I be more open and loving to my partner? Why can't I be more vulnerable? Why can't I be a better parent? Like, what the hell is wrong with me? Right? I'm just so frustrated. Instead of that frustration, what if I brought like a lot of curiosity? Like, there's practices that I want to do, I'm not doing. Can I bring some curiosity, not only to the desire to do the practice, those parts of me that want to do a thing, but also to the parts of me that don't want to do the thing, right? Sometimes we're just so focused on
Hmm.
the not doing, right? Why can't I go on a diet, or why do I keep, but we need to be curious on both, right? The part of me that wants to lose weight and the part of me that can't, the part of me that wants to engage in a spiritual practice and the part of me that doesn't, the part of me that wants to be a more patient parent and the part of me that loses my patience, right? What if I just brought curiosity? And I was like, wow, how much would that shift? I mean, even as I'm talking about that, I'm noticing that kind of a shift of like,
Mm.
wow, if I just brought some curiosity to all those different parts of me, that just feels so much different in my body than like, get it together, which is what I usually feel. Just get your shit
Mm.
together. And it's like, okay, what's happening that I can't get my shit together? Like what,
Yeah.
and who inside is saying, get your shit together? Can I bring some curiosity to that, right? To the part of me that's like, get your shit together.
Yeah. Wow. No, um, you know, folks in IFS talk a lot about the paradigm shift, and I think it's profound, right? This idea that what if there was nothing wrong with you? Um, and that is just one of the most beautiful, like therapeutic stances I've ever seen, and seen it played out, and seen the way it humanizes ourselves and one another in a way that other models don't quite do it for me. Like to your point about CBT, which I did purist CBT for years with a purist CBT supervisor, right? And that view on pathology, or in other words, on humanity, is like you're anxious because you've got dysfunctional thoughts that are distorted, right? We need to, clean those up. Basically, your thinking is wrong. Um, and it works to an extent, right? Of untangling that, right? Of like, I feel like everyone hates me, and it's like, okay, what's the proof that everyone hates you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if a client comes in and they go, yeah, I'm just feeling like everyone hates me. Okay, can you focus in on that feeling? Or where do you feel that? Where do you find that in your body? Well, it's this pit in my stomach. Okay, can you focus in on it? Can you actually invite it all the way forward? Right? What would that be like? Like, what? Why would I want to do that? I'm here to get rid of it. And then looking at me like, are you crazy? Right? What if you sent it a little compassion? It's working really hard. Can you ask it why it's working so hard? What it's trying to do for you? It's just this incredible unraveling that happens even in a first session. Even if a client is like, they're new to IFS or they're not even sure what this exercise is, but they're like, yeah, I guess I can try it. It's just so beautiful and gentle. And it literally, the biggest relief I've had, and this was after, like a year sabbatical from clinical work. By sabbatical, I mean, got burnt out and couldn't do it anymore, is not only what if there's nothing wrong with you, but people are no longer coming to me with the assumption that I have the answers to somehow fix you. Or they're like, why can't I stop drinking? I'm like, well, you come in and we're going to do 30 days. And anytime you want to drink, slap yourself with a rubber band on the wrist. And it's probably because of
Yeah.
your mom. It's like, well, yeah, I know it's because of my mom, but what the hell do I do about it? And it's like, well, okay, well, let's get more intellectual about it. And then maybe you'll stop drinking. Like,
Yeah.
no, my clients are smart and creative and capable and all these things. And a lot of therapy inadvertently undermines all of that. Or in
Yeah.
IFS, we call it self, right? It's like, I must have some I have something that you're lacking,
Mm.
right? Is so much of what therapy is built upon, right? Or I was trained psychodynamically for the start of my work, trained deeply in psychodynamics, right? So it's like you suffer because you have dysfunctional relational dynamics, and I need you to play them out with me, right? And
Mm.
I can eventually be this powerful figure that, you know, gives you a corrective emotional experience.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
I don't know.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you got to keep coming back if you want me to keep correcting your internal,
Yeah. Yeah.
model.
Yeah.
And IFS just turns all of that on its head, right?
Yeah. Like my corrective experience comes from the parts of me. All right. So the parts of me that need and desire a corrective experience, they get that from me, from the
Himself.
self, from my true self,
Yeah.
capital M me, capital S self. They get that from me. So if the story is, you said, like, why can't I stop drinking? Okay, so
Yeah.
if I bring curiosity to that, or if I have the thought that I'm so stupid, if I bring curiosity to that part of me that thinks that, part of me that really believes that I'm so stupid, right? Well, I want to go to you. Hey, buddy, what's going on? Tell me, where is this belief coming from? Okay, so we can use some of our, so I've sort of learned this. I used to be sort of so pissed off about CBT and DBT, like, oh, it's all bad. But now I'm like, I can use some of that
Yeah. Yeah.
languaging to really get to know, tell me where these beliefs are coming from, right?
Yeah.
Not in sort of this heady, like, let's beat these beliefs out of you, because sort of beliefs lead to feelings, lead to behavior. And that's actually really nice and simple. And actually parts
Hmm.
of me kind of like that. But really, can I just be in this open-hearted, curious way of like, where'd you learn that? Tell me
Hmm.
more. Show me the experiences where you believed that, where that
Yeah.
became reinforced.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to be open and let this part tell me what's happening. And then, and this is where this corrective emotional spirits can actually happen, and that sort of attachment work can be repaired. What's it like to have me listen to you? What's it like to
Right.
be together right now as you tell me about all these times in your life that were really hard? What's it like just to be with me and tell me that? And we're just going to slow that way down. And I'm just going to be with this part. This part's going to be with me. And we're going to have this corrective experience and this attunement and this attachment work. We're going to do all of that juicy stuff by just this part telling me its story, and me
Mhm.
just being here witnessing and curiosity and open-heartedness. I mean, this is life-changing.
I'm, as you know, I'm like a full convert. It's ridiculous. I have to calm down my excitement for IFS. I called
Yeah.
my sister a while back and told her about it. At the end, she was like, "This sounds like more than just a therapy model." It's just like,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
can get that way because I feel like I haven't fully known what deep healing looks like, both for myself and in the
Mm.
room with the clients when they actually uproot that thing that we're talking about, or that worthlessness, right? And a lot of therapy, I think, focuses on more of this top down of like, let's mitigate the symptoms, let's manage the drinking, right? Let's do a behavior plan to your point, right? And I'm just like, I've never really felt that felt like true healing to me,
Mm. Yeah.
really, until I, yeah, started using this model, or like had a client, walked a client through an unburdening for the first time. It was like, oh my goodness, this is very real. And
Yeah.
this really works, and this is a deep deep model. And this thing, I think Frank Anderson says it like it's the most complete model that I found. So if
Mm.
you come from like this cognitive background, if you go in, you find this vulnerable part that's carrying this belief of I'm worthless, and maybe you
Mm.
bring that part through an unburdening, right? Or self brings that part through an unburdening. What do you want to do with that belief of I'm worthless,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Do you want help getting rid of it? If so, how do you want to get rid of it, right? So like there's your cognitive component, the psychodynamic component, the relational component. I had a client recently where um early childhood experience, and the client had like bought a comic book and was super excited about it, and got absolutely berated by mom for spending too much money on
Mm.
it.
Mm.
So then go in, being with this part, can you get down on this little kid's level, and just see what this part wants from you? Is there anything he wants to
Mm.
show you or tell you? Well, he wants to show me the comic book. He wants to tell me about it. He actually knows a lot about it. He's actually
Mhm.
knows a ton about comic books and about this story and about this character. Yeah, just let him tell you that. Just sit, just be there with him. Let him tell
Mhm.
you that. Like
Mhm.
crazy powerful how that is, right? And a lot of the
Yeah.
basic skills therapists have or that I've had leading up to this point, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm well equipped to help this client with that moment because I'm understanding relationally what's happening. Or like what would a 7-year-old need who just got berated, right? And he's holding that comic book wondering, does anyone care about what I care about?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like what your sister said, it's really the spiritual, right? Yes, it's a
Yeah,
psychotherapy model and it's evidence-based. I think that's important. It's clinical and but it is the spiritual experience. Like, right, like if you're witnessing this with a client or you're doing it yourself, it is a spiritual experience, right? To sit
yeah,
there, for me to sit there with my 7-year-old who's showing me this comic book and there's something happening between us that I could never sort of explain or kind of this um it's just it is a spiritual experience and um it is life changing, not just for so that you stop drinking or you stop or you have different it is a different way of being in the world, right? It's a different way of walking through the world and um I know we're sort of part of me is saying like we're really kind of we're promising this sort of like this big that we're really selling it. Like we're really selling this thing.
yeah,
But it really is that amazing. It really
yeah,
is. And I think that you and I both, our lives are different because of IFS.
yeah,
My life is very different because of IFS. And I think yours is too.
yeah,
And we would not do what we're doing and what we do, and we would not be doing what we do to spread the word about it and spread the
yeah,
word about multiplicity, that we all have parts. And this
yeah.
helps me understand why I keep drinking, right? Why do I
Hmm.
keep drinking when it's the worst thing for me? It's ruining my family. And, I've lost relationships and I've lost money. So why the hell do I keep drinking? Well, if I think of it as a part, right? A part of me that's drinking, then maybe I can turn towards it and find out what's going on. What is happening that you keep drinking? Let me bring some curiosity to the part of me that keeps drinking or drugging or gambling or doing sex addiction things or
Yeah,
whatever that is, shopping, eating, yelling, whatever, beating, like whatever that is. Can I turn towards that? I know we have parts that hate those parts. We know we have parts that are ashamed of them and disgusted by them. So we ask those parts to step back and we can go with open-hearted curiosity and find out what is going on. And those parts often just want to give us relief, want to end our suffering, want to help us feel engaged or alive, right? They really want big
yeah,
things for us. And this is the way they have found to do it for us.
yeah. I'm curious if you have thoughts on the role of shame in all this because I think it's such a thick layer to a lot of our work and our clients' lives and our lives, and how it might show up is like, for instance, I've had a client recently. It's like they come in a session, they're like, had a really hard week. I got into a huge fight with my partner, and the fight started ramping up, and then I was like, screw this, and I just went and like got super drunk or got super high, right?
Yeah.
Through some work through that session, we get to know that part that decided to drink or that wanted to drink, and find that part of its intention and its role is kind of protecting the client from shame, right? Or in this case, protecting the exile from shame or getting flooded with shame. So we come in and nope, we're going to cut this off, right? Before this
Yeah.
fight gets any worse. And so we just get as drunk as possible. Um, hey, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense that you did that.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't come in and try to yank that part out of its role or out of its its method, right? Its method is to drink, right?
Yeah.
But this piece about shame and about that part is not sure that the system could handle shame if this fight keeps going, and
Totally.
so let's get ahead of it. Well, that makes sense, and in that regard, you're really good at your job. You
Yeah.
nipped it in the bud.
Yeah. So, so three thoughts, and maybe I'll remember all three of them, but maybe I won't. I want to say something about shame being like fire and firefighters, and I also want to say something about um, shame being, and especially in a relationship with your partner, we sort of fight over who's when we're fighting, we're really fighting over sort of who's bad right? You're bad, you're
Yeah.
bad, you're bad. We're sort of just pointing at sort of bad, who's bad. And shame is the idea of our badness being witnessed, right? And how much does that happen in a partnership or a marriage, or sort of, I'm bad, or you're telling me I'm bad, and then that badness is being witnessed by another. And that's where this sort of, these exiles, there's really young parts who really believe they're bad or unlovable or unworthy. And we all have them, and they all have a sort of a different flavor, but that's what they usually, right? Like, I am bad, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. Um, and so what happens is, think of that as like a fire. And I know you know this, but sort of for the
Mhm.
listeners, that like that's like a fire. And a firefighter, my brother's a Baltimore City firefighter, and a firefighter will destroy a house to save the people in it, right? They will destroy the house, they don't care, and they will save the people in it. And so that is a fire. Shame is a fire, right? That fire comes up. Wife is saying, actually, you're bad, buddy. And a part is resonating with that. Yes, I am bad, right? I am bad. I feel that. There's the fire. And here comes a firefighter that's going to do whatever it takes to fight that fire. And if that's alcohol or drugs or sex or money or all the things I listed earlier, right? Whatever is going to happen to get that fire out, because they will destroy the house to save the people. And so the firefighter, the drinker, is coming in to take care of that shame fire.
Yeah.
And that's why there's such a connection between these behaviors that we don't like and that actually really destroy our lives, and shame, because they're really coming in those moments of shame.
Mhm. Was that thought number one, or was that all
I think
three?
that might have been one, two, and three. I think that was all three.
Love that. I think our work is
Yeah,
done here then.
I think it
Yeah,
is. It was like a braid.
that
I
feels
braided
right.
it together.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, I just love hearing you talk about it. I mean, like I said, it's funny enough because I have a, perhaps a manager part that just kind of wants all the answers and wants you to tell me how to do the model. I'm like, and then
Yes.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
like kind of benefiting from this. I'm like, oh, I'm getting Tammy to talk about the model.
So the people that don't know the model, right? There's sort of these different parts of the model. There's their managers. So there's the parts that are protectors, and we call those managers and firefighters. We just talked about the firefighters, right? And they're protecting us, right? So the managers come in. So those exiles, those young parts of us, those shame, that fire that never gets right. It never gets, fire never happens, right? So I'm going to
Mhm.
make sure that I manage my life. I'm organized. I send thank you cards. I call my grandmother every Sunday. Like, I manage my life. I make sure I'm on time, or perfectionistic, or even critical managers, or even drinking managers, right? Like, let me have a drink before I go over somebody's house, right? All sort of before, right? I'm just going to make sure that I live a certain way. I mean, even some of my spiritual, I was thinking about this today, like my parts of me that want to engage in spiritual practices, sometimes that can be really manager driven, right? Like, if I do my centering prayer sit, a 20-minute sit, then I'll be able to handle my day better. And that's true, right? These parts aren't, they're not making stuff up, right? It comes from a true place, right? Like, if I meditate, I'm actually gonna potentially, maybe, you never really know, but I'm gonna sort of be in a better mindset or have a better day potentially. But they can feel manager driven, right? Like, if I do this, then, to make sure that
Mm.
that I don't feel sad, or that I don't feel alone, or that I don't feel scared. I'm going to do these things. I'll never feel scared. I'll never feel alone. Or I'll never feel bad. Like, I'm a bad person. I'll never feel unloved, right? Here's all the things I'll do to make sure I never feel unworthy or unloved. And so we call those managers. And then we have the firefighters, and those are the ones that come in after that fire has been triggered, right? Which is going to, no
Mhm.
matter how good of a job our managers do, we're going to get triggered, right? Our families, the traffic, whatever, right? I mean, I can be by myself and get triggered, right? Doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? We're going to get triggered. And so our firefighters come in when we get triggered, and they do whatever it takes to deal with that trigger. And so
Yeah.
those are the parts that are protective. And then we have a category of parts that need protecting, and those are called exiles. And those are the ones we put in the basement. We want to be like, la, 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 la. We don't know you. We don't need you. We don't want anything to do with you, right? Those are the ones that really have those beliefs right? That I am bad, I am no good, something's wrong with me. And those are parts that are usually locked at a certain age and are usually locked in a certain time or scene sometimes in our lives. And they really hold a lot of pain and a lot of vulnerability. But they also hold playfulness and creativity. So when we go to them and when we unburden, you mentioned unburden, when we unburden them of this burden they've been carrying, burden of shame or unlovability, then what comes into our systems is play and creativity and joy and youthfulness can kind of come back into our systems because that gets locked away too. And we talk about this with feeling, just sort of forget IFS for a second, right? If I'm depressed, then I get on medicine, which is totally fine. And then sometimes I don't feel anything, right? I don't feel the good or the bad, which I get that. And there's no problem with that. But sometimes you got to play with that a little bit. I don't want to not feel anything. But that's what happens with our exiles. We send them so far away, we don't feel anything from
Yeah.
them. So we don't even feel sort of
Yeah.
the gifts that they can give us.
Like I was saying before, so many models, if a client comes into a session and they're super activated, right, triggered, whatever, I kind of am liking the word activated more lately. They come in, they're super activated, right? Or they come in, they're like, I have bad news. Like, I drank this week. A lot of therapists are like, oh boy, okay, right? Like, we
Right.
got to control this drinking. An IFS therapist is like, great, a new trailhead, as they're
Yes.
called. It's just like
Yeah.
totally different way of looking at it, right? If a client comes in, if they are
Yeah.
completely flat, not connected with anything, right, then it becomes a little hard to find your footing with an IFS session. If a client comes in and they go, yeah, I'm really freaking out about this conversation I have to have with my boss on Friday. Okay, yeah. So do you want to work on that? Do you want to can you focus in on that? Can you find that part,
Yeah.
right now? And
Yeah.
then you're kind of off to the races with the session.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
activation is an entry point, right? Like we're kind of looking for
totally.
that in a session versus like looking to tamp that down of like, well, if you maybe deep breathe more or like essential oils, I think are really good or like,
And all those things are fine, like deep breathing
oh,
and
no,
essential
totally.
oils. Yes, totally. We
Yeah.
love some deep breathing and some essential oils. And there's nothing wrong with those things. And there's nothing wrong with a behavioral plan. There's nothing wrong with 12-step program. Like that, we're not saying,
Yeah.
sort of all those things are welcome. But yes, we can follow the activation with curiosity, right? Like, yes, there's
Exactly.
activation here. Great. Let's follow it with curiosity. And sometimes that actually feels really good. Even let's say for me, like if I'm activated, one of the first things that's like, okay, clearly there's a part here. Let me get some curiosity about why I'm activated. And you joked around about sort of IFSers and how we do this, but the thing about IFS is we all have to be doing our own work. Right.
Hmm.
I did that week long with Dick in Cape Cod. I did a ton of work on myself. I immediately got in therapy. I immediately started IFS therapy because I wanted to learn the model, but the best way to learn the model is to do it on myself, and get to know my own system because that's gonna happen. So when there's activation in my system, I can follow that. Okay, what's happening for me, and I can follow that with some curiosity. Um, and then the other thing I want to say is, when people do come in flat, or and I'm really noticing these parts of me, I'm calling them my parts that are asleep, the parts of me that are disconnected or dissociative or numb, those parts sometimes are harder to see, right? They're
Mm.
harder to catch because there's an absence, right? So if I can notice the drinking, I'm not really going to notice an absence or flat affect or disconnection. Um, but 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 many of us have those are amazing protectors. The part that's like, I'm not even here anymore. Like I remember noticing it. It almost felt like Superman, and this is how IFS can be really weird, but like it almost felt like I would be like, la la la, everything's fine. And then Superman would come in, like swoop in, and I'm like, I'm not here anymore. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
aware, like I'm here, like I'm not completely dissociated, but it's sort of like this part came in, took away, right? Took away all the pain, all the discomfort. Like if there's tension, if there's conflict, it's like I don't have to be here anymore, right? This part so
Yeah.
those parts can be a little bit tricky, but I love them because they're
Yeah.
so helpful, right? And I like to name them, and I want you to describe it to me. Like, does it feel like a wall, a disconnect, a dissociative, a fog, a cloud,
Yeah.
automatic? Like, what all these words are they give us power, because I think, oh, it happens to all of us to some degree. So, can I get to know that? Because I can get to know that part of me. And again, I'm not telling it could never do that. I just want a relationship with it so it's not driving the bus so much. And if I'm
Totally.
so disconnected, there are times I want to be disconnected, right? Like if my mom and my dad are fighting, I don't really want to be here for that. I don't have to be here for that, right? If I'm stuck in the car and mom and dad are fighting, I don't have to be here for that. But if I'm at the beach and it's a beautiful day and my partner's out there surfing and it's warm, I want to be present for that. And if my disconnect part is here, that's I'm not about that. I'm like, no, I need to be here. I want to be present for this. Right. So I think it's okay for us to sort of, this is the idea though, is we can have a relationship with these parts. Right. And I can say, hey, what's happening? I'm at the beach. Why are you here right now? What are you
Yeah.
afraid would happen if you let me just be here? Just let me be here right now. Doesn't mean you have to go away forever, but what's happening that you're here? Is there something you're afraid of that I'm feeling, or something that's like, what's happening that you're here? And I'm asking that with curiosity, right? If there's
Yeah.
an activation, that part is there for a reason. So I want to turn towards it with some curiosity. Like, why are you here? We usually know, but sometimes we don't, right? Like,
Yeah.
why am I so disconnected? Because
Yeah.
sometimes parts are so quick, we don't really realize, oh, wait a minute. Susie in the lunchroom just said this to me, and that made me feel stupid, or I felt some shame when she said this. So all of a sudden, I'm not really present, right? I'm not really noticing what's happening. And oh, I didn't even notice that I wasn't noticing. But that part came in for a reason. So if we follow it, we can sometimes find that. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world to me. I often find that a cue for me that a part is activated or kind of taking the wheel is a physical cue, right? So tightness in my stomach or whatever. And a process I've developed is as I've gotten to know parts, or even I've mentioned like I have parts that have a lot to say about this show and doing this show, and so I have a part up right now who's like not so sure about, should we do this show, should we keep doing it, is it okay to kind of be seen by all these people, right, or be on this microphone. um it's a bit of a negotiation, it's a bit of a dance with that part. In the moment, I am kind of internally sending it some compassion that makes sense that, that you're kind of up right now, and some reassurance that I've got this, right, or I've got, I can handle this interview, or we can kind of sit down at the table later and come to a decision about, are we going to do this show or not, right? And this this conference table image that I use a lot with my clients, with my own parts, right? Of different parts. They all have a seat at this table. They all really matter to me, and I can kind of hear from them one by one. And sometimes them just being heard is enough for them to
Yeah.
settle a little bit and soften. It's kind of like a customer service situation. I was talking to my client yesterday who works in customer service, right? If someone is like, and this came in and no one served me, and I've been waiting here for 20 minutes. It's like sometimes people just need to be like, I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Like this has been so frustrating. You've been sitting here and you've been waiting and wasting your time. Like I totally get that. Thank you for letting me know. I'm writing this down. Tell me more, right? It's like
Oh,
you'll see a person come down,
yeah.
like you just kind of
Yeah,
hang there.
because when we were little, in general, we weren't heard or seen or understood in general.
Yeah.
And so when we are heard and seen and understood, our little parts are almost like, wait, you're listening to me? You're seeing me? You're understanding me? Wow. And that is often all I need, right? All
Yeah.
that, right? Like that's all my system needs, because it's not something that we've gotten. Like
Yeah.
even the best, even in the best parents, right? Like
Totally.
I'm a parent, you're a parent, like we've already
Yeah.
screwed our kids up pretty
Yeah.
much, So um we just sort of try to limit how much we
Yeah.
screwed them up, sort of
Yeah.
like how many burdens they have. We're just sort of limit the burdens
Yeah.
as much as we can. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's it, right? So I love the table image. And I think the thing is we want to invite all the parts that have something to say about whether John should continue the podcast. Let's invite them all and let's sort of hand the mic around. who wants to say something? And John, you're at the table, you're looking out your own eyes and you're seeing your parts, or you're hearing, you don't have to see them, but you could see them, or you could just hear them and just sort of tell me, you know, yes and no. We're not voting. We're just sort of, I want to hear, like, I want to hear and I want to understand. And then you, John, the adult, the self in the system, if a decision needs to be made, it can be made by you, or maybe there is no decision yet, right? They just needed to be
Yeah.
heard. And then you can kind of keep moving forward. I realized this a couple weeks ago that that when I need to make a decision, it is very clear and and but sometimes I sit and maybe for years listening to my parts, and then it's like all of a sudden one day I just know. I know, right? And I've done the same thing with my podcast. I'm like, this is a pain in the butt. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. But it's not been clear. There's not, but it's been a clear yes. It's been a clear yes. Continue, continue, continue. That's been clear. But when there's been 2 times in my life significantly that I've been like, I need to end this. And it's been really clear. But I think that's because um, there's been this practice of really listening to my parts and um yeah, so I'm sort of combining the listening to parts and sort of making a decision and kind of saying that the demand to make a decision is often a part. I think that's what I'm trying to say, right? There's a part sometimes that's saying you need to make a decision. And that usually tells me that I'm not making any decision.
Yeah.
I'm not making any decision. I'm going to turn towards the part that's saying I need to make a decision. And
Yeah.
usually that's because I'm in pain and it just wants my pain to go away. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that's not true, right? Yes, making that decision would potentially end the pain, but it might not be the right time, right? So, and
Yeah.
it's going to feel different. If I make a decision because the part of me wants to end my pain, I can do that. But making a decision from me and from my my belly and my heart, that is a very different way of making a decision. Does that
It
make sense?
feels very different. Makes a lot of sense. And another element that I see is if something feels compulsive, then it's often kind of led by a part. And again, I see this with my
It
clients.
kind of is. I mean, a little bit, yeah.
Like, yeah, I have a client who's like, ambivalent about their drinking, right? And it's like, if you're in the moment, it feels compulsive, right? Or like I experienced a little bit of anger and then I drank, get rid of the anger, right? And that happens like that. Like you mentioned, parts act fast. They really do. Mine act really fast. I mean, you've seen this in session. I could have 6 parts, all
Yeah.
going like this really fast. And that can be a lot. So a good IFS therapist helps you slow that all down, right? And kind of hear from one at a time. But um, going back to like the drinking thing, if there is enough if there is enough spaciousness and you sit down, and you look at the drink and go, um, is this something I want? Right? Like, do I want to drink this? Does this feel good? Is this, decision I want to make? And it feels like you with the capital Y making that decision, that can feel very different. It could be that, it could be also just like responding to a text from your partner of like, if you
Yes.
have that
Right.
tension, you're like, okay, oh, you think I blah, blah, blah. Well, wait till you hear this. You're like
Yeah.
gearing up and it's
Yeah.
like part versus part, which is basically like wound versus wound or wound
Yes.
interacting with wound is how I see it.
It's
Like
beautiful. Yeah.
I literally one of the biggest moments for me, this is so silly, but I know it doesn't matter, was I was at the DMV a while back. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but this is a big win for me. And I sat there and I went and I had to get my car. I had to pay my like taxes for the car, and I knew it would just take a few minutes. I got there and the line was super long. And I'm like, okay, the line is super long. A year ago, I would have been annoyed about that already. And I would have had some tension. Like, okay, this is long. Like, how do I like work around this? Or maybe I should ask to speak to someone or whatever. And it took forever just to get the ticket and then to go sit down. I waited for 2.5 hours, and people that had gotten there after me were going up before me, which again would normally activate a part, like a fairness part, right? Or justice part.
Yeah.
Like I've been waiting here for so long, and I saw other people going up to the counter doing what I would have usually done. Like, can I speak to someone? Actually, I've been sitting here for a long time. I just need to pay the thing, right? And
Right.
it's like, it's all
Yeah.
parts.
Yeah.
So I literally sat in this freaking lobby for 2.5 hours and just was like, I'm going to sit with my parts. and just like
Mm.
literally hear from them as they come up. And they came up, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm wasting my time. I could be with my daughter right now. I could be working on my business. Like, I have clients to see. Don't they know that? Like,
Yeah, I'm a big important
all of that.
person. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an important person. Yeah. Like, how
Yeah.
dare they waste my
Yes.
time? These
Yeah.
people, this person is on their phone, right?
Yeah.
Like, they could be helping me right now. All of that was going on. And I
Yeah.
just sat. And then after 2.5 hours, they called my stupid little number. And I walked up there and I looked at the person and I literally like had compassion for them. I'm like, gosh, this person's working a really freaking hard job. And they've been
Mm,
under these fluorescent lights for like 9.5 hours, right?
mm,
Like, not making good money. And I just walked in, like, how's your day going? They're like, oh, fine. What do you need? And like, here's my slip. And they're like, okay, it's this much money. I just gave it to him. I was like, all right, thank you for your help. Have a good day. I walked out and I'm like, I don't know who that guy was, but that was amazing.
I'm very proud of that guy. Well,
Yeah.
I love that story. And so I think what I want people to hear is we call that unblended,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm listening to the parts of me around the table. There's a difference between me and my parts. I am here and I'm watching or I'm listening to my parts and I'm unblended. Blended is I am the part. I'm the
Yeah.
part that's pissed off. It's unfair. I'm important. I want to see my daughter. Da, 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 da. I am that. I'm
Yeah.
feeling that. My body's feeling that. I'm thinking it. I'm blended with that part. I am that part. And that's how we walk around
Oh yeah.
99% of the time, right? We
Yeah.
we are the part. But then when there's a little bit of space, we recognize that activation. The cue, I'm activated. The cue, my stomach hurts. The cue, I've got some pain in my shoulders. The cue, I just said, oh my gosh, you're so stupid. The
Yeah.
cue is I say the thing that I always say to myself that I'm used to. There's the cue that I'm in a part. Okay. I'm noticing I'm in a part. I'm a little bit unblended because I'm noticing I'm in a part. All right, I wonder if I could sort of sink back a little bit more. I wonder if there could be a little bit of space between me and this part. What's going on? What's it like in my body?
Yeah.
What can you tell me right now? Like what's happening? And
Yeah.
more space between me and that part of me. So I could get to know it and have a relationship with it. And
It's
you did it
also,
beautifully. You did it beautifully. I'm so proud of you.
well, we'll
So
see if I
good.
can do it again next time I go. Because if I can't, then I'm a failure. But
Oh yeah,
we already
that's
know that.
totally true. That is 100% true.
You mentioned this phrase last time, like let me lead. I don't know if that's something that Dick says, whatever, but that has worked for me, or it was working in that moment, right? Parts that really want me to go up to that counter and let them have it, right? Or like demand, like, how much longer is it going to be or whatever. And it's like really just sending those parts of reassurance, like, I hear you, I know you want to do that. Just like, it's okay to wait. Or letting them know, like, I can handle this interaction at the register. And as I'm saying out loud, it sounds crazy because it sounds like I'm talking to little people in my head. Not everyone does that. And that's pretty weird. And what about multiple personality disorder and whatever? But I'm like, it's that reassurance. Just like, yeah, I totally hear you. I'm just asking for you to let me do this interaction at the counter. And they
Yeah,
did. I'm like,
yeah,
oh my gosh, I think
yeah,
I'm a fully actualized person and I can quit therapy. Just need to
yeah.
get Tammy's approval to,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, that I've
Yeah.
arrived.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll send you like an award and
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
put it on your wall.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like a little
Yeah. I
plaque
have those. I have those.
or
It
a
has like a
ribbon.
gold star on it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll take two of them in case I lose the other one. Um, we've got like, yeah, a couple minutes left. We're over time, but anything else you want folks to know or like final thoughts on today? I just so appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge. It's incredible. So fun to hear you talk about IFS in some depth. And then of course, let people know a little bit more about your book, how they can find your podcast, and we'll of course have links to all this in the notes.
Yeah. So you can just go to my website, tammysollenberger.com. You can get my book there. The podcast is there. You can get the book on Amazon or at your local Barnes and Noble, potentially. And the podcast is on Spotify, and you can ask Alexa to play podcasts. It's on YouTube, not video, but the audio is on YouTube. So you should be able to find it everywhere. And then yeah, my
Yeah,
website. So, and I'm on Instagram, IFS Tammy on Instagram.
great. And then obviously our show is mostly for therapists in private practice. If they're interested in learning, like working with you, are there any offerings right now in terms of consulting? Or are you?
Yeah, I
Pretty
mean,
busy.
you can
Yeah.
shoot me an email. I mean, I am busy, but
Yeah.
here's two things that I've done.
Great.
People can shoot me an email. If people are interested, and this is kind of weird, but this has worked out. But if people are interested in getting a group of people together that either have done level one or they're waiting to get into level one, like you said, there's this huge waiting list. I have had probably maybe five different groups of people approach me and say, hey, would you do an hour-long group for us? And it's always worked out. Like I've never advertised it. It's always worked out. Like people get their own group of people or people that have done it training together. And then they'll say, like, hey, there's three of us or there's five of us, and we want to meet for an hour, once a month or once a week or once every other week or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
then we do, I do a little teaching piece of IFS and then we do
Yeah.
work. And all the groups are always a little bit different. Sometimes I'm just
That's
doing work with
cool.
each person. So, and that's always open. So if people wanted to shoot me an
Great.
email and then, because I don't really, I still have clients. I still see clients. I have a
Right.
private practice and I still see clients. But I don't take any new clients. I only take people that are looking for IFS consultation. So if you're a
Yeah.
mental health provider of any sort and you're looking for consultation to learn about IFS, just shoot me an email.
Great. Love it. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, you've just been an amazing support and teacher and helper and guide and everything for me. So I appreciate it so much. And helping me to bring it to my group practice has meant a lot to me too. So thank you for that. I
Thank you. It's
just,
been an
yeah.
honor and it's been
Oh,
fun. So
well, thanks again. Thank you again for being here. And yeah, folks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, like and subscribe, all that stuff. We'll be doing more clinical episodes. That's just the way things are heading for this show. And yeah, open to your feedback on that. And then thanks again to the sponsor, Jane, for sponsoring the show today. So thanks again for being here, and we'll see you all in the next one.